St. Mark's, may the peace of Christ be with you all. If you are a cardiologist, you're going to like this sermon introduction. Or if you're going to see your cardiologist soon, then here are some fun facts that you can spit out at your next doctor's appointment. Of all the different parts that make up the human body, it is the heart, perhaps, that has the most adjectives that can be used to describe it. Can you put my picture of the heart up on the screen above me? There it is, a little word art. Listen to a few of the adjectives that can be used to describe hearts. There are strong hearts, then there are weak hearts. There are heavy hearts, then there are light hearts. Some hearts are tender, some hearts are soft, while other hearts are hardened. A heart can be broken, but a heart can also be whole. A heart can be warm, but a heart can also be cold. A heart can be generous, but it can also be stingy too. Some people have brave hearts, noble hearts, big hearts, hearts that are made out of gold, while other people have wicked hearts and hearts made out of stone. If there are people we love, we call them sweethearts. But if our feelings change about that person, we say, I've had a change of heart. If someone is trying their best but their actions don't measure up, we say, their heart is in the right place. And if we want to encourage someone to pursue their dreams, we say, just follow your heart. When we want to say something sincerely, we speak from the bottom of our hearts. If we want to make a promise, we can say, I cross my heart. If we have memorized something so well we'll never forget it, we say, we know it by heart. And if someone expresses their emotions and it's very easy to read, we can say, he wears his heart on his sleeve. If we want to encourage someone who's about to give up, we say what? Don't lose heart. If we're in a hurry and we want to get somewhere as fast as we can say, I'll be there in a heartbeat. Someone who is hard to read is said to have a guarded heart, while someone who is kind and generous is said to have an open heart. If someone is being ruthless or lacking compassion, we can say, have a heart. And if someone is gloating over their good fortune, perhaps at the expense of others, we can say to them without being mean, eat your heart out. Again, there are many ways to describe the human heart. So many adjectives, so many words, so many different phrases. So the next time you see your cardiologist and your doctor asks you, how are you feeling? Feel free to use any of those adjectives that I just shared with you this morning. If you are joining us for the first time this morning, we are in a sermon series on the Beatitudes. And this morning we are looking at a particular beatitude where Jesus talked about the heart. As you have heard from my sermon introduction, there are many different adjectives that can be used to describe one's heart, but the adjective that Jesus used in today's beatitude is one we haven't heard yet. Listen to the beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Today we'll be talking about pure hearts. Let's read the Beatitude together as we have done in past weeks, where we'll read it sort of as a call and response. Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 through 12, the Beatitudes. Now when he saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them, saying, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. For they will be comforted. For they will inherit the earth. For they will be filled. For they will be shown mercy. For they will see God. For they will be called sons and daughters of God. for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. This is the word of the Lord. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Will you say that together with me? Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. When Jesus originally spoke those words, when he was delivering his Sermon on the Mount, the people knew that Jesus was speaking about the heart using metaphorical language. After all, a heart does not see, that's not its function. A heart beats, or to be accurate, it pumps blood throughout the rest of the body. Seeing has to do with our vision, which is what our eyes do. And so if Jesus was trying to be technical, he would have said it this way: Blessed are those with 20/20 vision. Blessed are those with perfect eyesight, for they will see God clearly. But that's not what he said, because he wasn't talking about the eyes, he wasn't talking about vision, he was talking about our hearts, referring to them metaphorically as the part of each one of us that is at the core and the center of who we are. Listen to a few Bible verses that also refers to the heart using metaphorical language. This is from Proverbs 27, verse 19. As water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart. Here's another one. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4, verses 23. Here's another one. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. Matthew chapter 6, verse 21, from the very same Sermon on the Mount. Here's a verse from Psalm 19, verse 14. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. In each of those verses, the heart referred to the center of our lives, something very deep inside, and the thing that shapes our lives, our attitudes, and our convictions. Now, when Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God," the specific word that he used to describe this kind of heart was the word pure. Blessed are the pure in heart. In the original Greek, it was the word katharos, similar to the word catharsis, which can have several meanings. First, it can mean to be free of dirt, impurities, or contaminants. Think of pure gold. Or it can mean to be free from guilt or sin, as in to have no moral impurities. It can also be used to describe someone who has no ulterior motives, where someone with a pure heart is the opposite of someone who has a divided heart. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. This morning, I want to share a few things or a few qualities of what it means to have a pure heart. The first is this: a pure heart is one that is pleasing to the Lord. A pure heart is one that is pleasing to the Lord. Some of you know, because I've shared this, I am a middle child. I have an older brother, I have a younger sister, and while it's not a universal truth, middle children tend to be people pleasers. Something about the birth order, something about the family dynamics, I don't know why, but middle children are often people pleasers. Some people say it's because middle children feel invisible, like no one can see us. And so to gain people's attention, middle children are often people pleasers, hoping that other family members would see our good intentions. Again, this is not a universal truth. Not all middle children are this way. But to have a pure heart is not just for middle children who tend to be people pleasers. To have a pure heart wants to be pleasing to God. A pure heart wants to be seen by God. It doesn't care who else is watching. It doesn't care about birth order. All it cares about is that God is watching and that God likes what he sees. Jesus addresses this a little bit later in this sermon. In the very next chapter, in Matthew chapter 6, he addressed a group of people who forgot that God was watching. Even worse, instead of trying to be pleasing to God, these people sought after the applause of the people, completely forgetting and completely disregarding God. Listen to a few verses where Jesus talked about this, starting in Matthew chapter 6 onwards. Jesus said, "Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." Then in regards to giving, Jesus said this, "So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by others. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Then in regards to prayer, Jesus said this, "And when you pray, do not pray like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Then in regards to fasting, Jesus said this, "When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Jesus was addressing a group of people whom he called hypocrites, who could have easily been middle children, who forgot that things like giving or prayer or fasting was not meant to be done for the applause of others, but was meant to be done for God alone. A pure heart wants to be pleasing to God. A pure heart wants to be seen by God. A pure heart is not so interested in what everyone else thinks or sees, but is concerned about what God sees and what God thinks. There's an interesting story in the Old Testament about how David was chosen as the new king. If you remember, Samuel, the judge and prophet, was sent to the house of Jesse to select one of his sons as the new king. When the firstborn son, whose name was Eliab, was presented to Samuel, Samuel was certain that Eliab was the one. But do you remember what God said to Samuel? "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." And so one by one, all the sons of Jesse were passed over until David was brought forth. But what was it about David that made him different than his older brothers? Well, there's another interesting story that took place many decades later. By this time, David was the sitting king over all of Israel. And in 2 Samuel chapter 6, there's a fantastic story of when the Ark of the Covenant was being brought into Jerusalem. The Ark of the Covenant is no laughing matter. You treat the Ark with the utmost care, but David did something as the Ark was coming to town. The king of Israel got up off his throne and ran down the road in front of the entire procession. And as the ark was brought into town, David walked right alongside it, dancing before all the people. A strange story, a strange thing to do. The king of Israel doesn't dance. The king doesn't kick up his heels. He certainly doesn't make a fool of himself, not in front of the entire kingdom, which is precisely what his wife Michal said to her husband king. How the king of Israel has distinguished himself today. This is sarcasm in the Old Testament. How the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, going around half naked in full view of the slave girls of his servants, as any vulgar fellow would. This is what was different about David. David didn't care what all the other people thought. He didn't care what all the people would say, seeing him make a fool of himself as the ark was coming to town. But like a little child who was happy and excited to see a parent coming home, David danced before the ark like a little child at the front door. Do you think God was pleased with him? Do you think God was saying, I chose the right one? A pure heart is pleasing to the Lord. David didn't dance for applause. He wasn't competing in a competition. He didn't do it for approval. David danced for the glory of the Lord. He didn't care that he wore a golden crown on his head. He didn't care that he was the head of a nation. He didn't care that all the eyes were on him. He only cared that God was watching, and David wanted to make sure that the ark did not enter alone. A pure heart is pleasing to the Lord. There was a famous Danish philosopher/theologian by the name of Søren Kierkegaard. You might have heard of his name. He lived about 200 years ago. He has a famous quote, if we could put it on screen, a little small. He said, "Purity of heart is to will one thing." Purity of heart is to will one thing. The quote is from his book, which actually has the same title. And in the book, he said that that one thing is to align our lives solely focused on God, to be unwavering in our heart's desire, to be fully committed in our pursuit to do the will of God. Jesus said, when our hearts are pure, we will see God. Listen to the Message version of this beatitude. I think you'll like it. It reads like this: "You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and your heart put right, then you can see God in the outside world." Interesting how just a different translation brings out a completely different nuance. You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and your heart put right, then you can see God in the outside world. Those who have pure hearts are able to see God in the outside world. Those who have pure hearts are able to see God everywhere they look. When I come to church throughout the week, when I drive onto campus, when I walk underneath our tall trees, when I feel the cool breeze in the afternoon, when I come inside the sanctuary and sit in the pews and look at the cross or the beautiful stained glass, it is easy to be moved and sense the presence of God. You've heard me speak about something called thin places. St. Mark's is a thin place, and I hope for many of you it will always be a thin place. But don't you wish that everywhere you went, and everywhere you looked, and everyone you met, whether at work, at school, or even at home, you can say, I see God in every one of those places and people. Well, according to this beatitude and according to Jesus, the pure in heart see God. There's a prayer, an old prayer that is called the Lorica of St. Patrick. Lorica is an old word for breastplate. The breastplate of St. Patrick. It was written in the 5th century. It's a rather long prayer that was often said at the very beginning of the day. This prayer was spoken with the imagery of someone who was putting on body armor and then ready to go out into the world to do battle. It's a long prayer, but the part of the prayer that I like best is at the end and how the prayer closes. I'll put the words on screen. It closes like this. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ in the heart of everyone who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me, Christ in the eye that sees me, Christ in the ear that hears me. That is a prayer that captures what it is to see Christ everywhere you look, in every direction, in every situation, and in every person you come across. It's a moving prayer. I've been praying it all week, and I feel like the words need to be modified. And so if I had to rewrite this prayer specifically for Billy's song, it would go something like this. Christ in the face of the cashier behind the counter. Christ in every person who swerves into my lane. Christ in the person begging on the street corner. Christ in every person whose accent doesn't sound like mine. Christ in every person who doesn't agree with me. Christ across the protest line. Christ across the political aisle. It takes a pure heart to pray the prayer that way, to see Christ in every person, in every situation, and in every direction. I want to close by referring to a parable that Jesus told in Matthew 25 called the parable of the sheep and goats. And in the parable, Jesus said, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." The righteous will answer, and I'll paraphrase, "Lord, when did we see you like that? And when did we do all those things that you mentioned?" And Jesus replied, "I tell you the truth, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers or sisters of mine, you did it for me." With a very simple and yet profound parable, Jesus taught his disciples how to see him in the world. When we look for Christ in the faces of the least of these, we shall see God. Jesus taught us to look for him in the faces of strangers. Jesus taught us to listen for him in the sound of grumbling and growling stomachs, to pay attention for him in the voices of the oppressed, and to respond to him in the least likely of situations. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. As you go into this week, may you see God in the outside world. And all God's people said,